Katlego, thank you so much for your time. Of course, you've been talking to various delegates. It's day 2 of the Mining Indaba. Talk to us about what is currently happening.
Well, a very good morning to you once again, Unati, and to our viewers at home. You're right, those conversations ongoing as we speak right now. So we see, delegates from the African continent exchanging ideas in terms of how we can move the mineral sector. And those are joined by those not just in Africa, but also from outside of South Africa that have gathered here just from the globe to form part of this particular event. We know very well that here we're talking about 10,000 plus of those delegates that will be here for the coming 4 days, thrashing out ideas. Bilateral talks underway as we speak. Right now, there are breakfast sessions that are wrapping up just to ensure that at least we see commitments and we see collaboration and a move, the punt, and what has been punted or what has been talked about here is the issue of green energy, the just energy transition. And this is where then we see most of those people just coming through to say, how can we ensure that there's solution? How can we talk about a job creation and ensure that this sector creates those well-needed jobs as we speak right now? And how can we ensure that all of these nations capitalize on these bilateral talks for their economies? But hey, we thought we should just take you to Britain in South Africa this morning and bring in the British High Commissioner, this being Mr. Antony Phillipson, who'll just give us a sense of why and how do we then find UK in this particular space, looking at what has been happening and these all-important talks. We know very well that you're doing business here in South Africa, you're doing business on the continent as well, and some of these developments within these sectors would tend to hamper and affect some of your investments. Maybe let us in on your role here as the British High Commission here at the Indaba. Welcome to the SABC, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a great pleasure to be able to come and talk to you about it. As you said, this is a huge moment at the Indaba, 10,000 plus, the biggest I've certainly experienced. And in the hall today, we have not only some of our biggest companies like Anglo American and Rio Tinto. Anglo employ 40,000 people here in South Africa. The UK overall is the single biggest international investor in South Africa's economy. But up in the hall, we have 15 companies, small, medium-sized enterprises, all playing particular roles in the mining sector. And the point you make in your introduction about the vital importance of the green energy transition, the work that we are doing with our colleagues from France, Germany, the US, the EU, and now Denmark and the Netherlands, in partnership with the South African government to support their ambitions for a just energy transition. Right at the heart of that is going to be available, accessible, reliable supply of these critical minerals. And then the other point I think is just really vital about all of this is it's not just about an energy transition, it's about an economic transformation. It's about the future prosperity of the South African economy, the Southern African economy, and the African economy. So making sure that these minerals are mined efficiently, high social standards that work in collaboration with their local communities, and really bring the value into the African economy, I think is absolutely vital. And that's what we and a number of other countries around the world are looking to do in partnership with South Africa and others on the continent.
We see the President touching on the domestic challenges that we have here on the ground, and those domestic challenges get then exacerbated by the geopolitics and what is happening internationally. Maybe give us a sense of the UK, what have you been reading in terms of what has been happening on the continent that would tend, or on the globe, around the globe, that would tend to then affect the continent and developments in terms of your investments?
So, as the President said yesterday, this is a complicated time geopolitically. We are seeing, whether it's the war in Ukraine, the conflict in Gaza, they are driving up economic costs. They are driving up the costs of doing business in the global economy. But they're also, of course, increasing commodity prices. So, again, there's a sort of two-way street there. But the key thing is that we need to work in partnership with our friends in South Africa to address these geopolitical challenges, whether it's in the UN or other organizations, and to make sure that we are having the right conversation. Again, the theme of this whole conference, the whole Indaba, is collaboration in a time of disruption. And I think that's exactly what we are trying to do, taking forward our partnerships with the South African government and the South African private sector, civil society, labour organisations, to make sure that we are all working together to address these challenges together.
And also, you're right to talk about the issue of the technology, the disruption that would tend to come into this space. Others talking about the fourth industrial revolution. Nations are talking about how they've even moved to the fifth industrial revolution as we speak right now. How do we ensure that we harness and get the best out of technology in ensuring that these investments find meaning on the continent in South Africa, and looking at those investments that you're putting into the country?
So I think the technologies that you're talking about, and again, some of our companies up in the exhibition hall are right at the heart of this, including, using technology to map mineral deposits through organisations like the British Geological Survey. But also another company, I'd never even thought about this, they are using their technology and 5G to track where the big trucks are that are moving around the mines, to make sure that they are operating as efficiently as possible. You can save 15% of your fuel costs if you get this right. But technology also brings change, brings challenges. It is transforming the communities that we are working within. This is why when we talk about the just energy transition, the most important word in that is just. Doing it in partnership with communities. It's about doing it in the context of an overall approach to inclusive economic growth, bringing excluded communities, including, for example, women, female entrepreneurs, into the economy, so that as we move forward through these essential transitions, as we all try and meet our objectives of keeping global warming down to 1.5 degrees, which the South African government is hugely committed to through its own nationally determined contribution, we can do it in a way that creates economic opportunity and gives people a sense of confidence that in the future there will be jobs for them to do, there will be dynamics within our communities that will be inclusive and cohesive. And so as we address those challenges, we address that sense of change, we do so in a way that is confident about what we can do together for the future.
Let's talk about coal, because we know very well that a lot of nations have said that we need to do away with coal, but in South Africa that remains our base in terms of how then we approach our energy and energy efficiency here at home. How do we balance it, according to you, in a way that would still meet the commitment to the just energy transition and how we move to greener energy, looking at the fact that we can't then just do away with coal as we speak? What has been your impression in terms of how South Africa has been approaching this particular matter?
I think I go back to the original political declaration between our leaders that was announced in the COP summit in Glasgow in November 2021, when President Ramaphosa himself said that South Africa had an ambition to move towards a green economy, move towards a renewable-based economy. But the key, as well as just, which I've talked about, the other key word is transition. This isn't going to happen overnight. The implementation plan that the South African government published at the last COP in the UAE in November last year sets out a way forward to move forward through a path to renewables, at the same time, of course, as strengthening the grid so that the existing base load, including, as you say, through coal at the minute, can be evenly distributed so that the government can address its energy security challenges at the same time as addressing its energy transition challenges. Also, alongside that, we need a path forward, which is in the implementation plan on electric vehicles. We need to see investment in green hydrogen, which is something, again, is a big focus between the UK and South Africa. Minister Nzimande has made a number of visits to the UK to see what we are doing in green hydrogen in places like Teesside. We have partnerships between our universities. We're working together on South Africa's green hydrogen strategy. All of this needs to be done together. All of it needs to be done together in a sense of partnership between not just our two governments, but the other governments that are working with South Africa, also people like the World Bank, and crucially the private sector. We have a company called BII, British International Investment, which is 70% owned by the British government, 30% owned by the Norwegian government. They are investing here in South Africa in renewable energy and other key aspects of this transition. It's complicated and it's difficult, but I think there is a clear path ahead, and we are committed to working in partnership with the South African government to make it a reality.
Electric vehicles, how are we going? Or how are we faring where that is concerned? Because we see the nation moving into that space as well, where we've seen the production of electric vehicles. How do you think really this will move as well in terms of our ambitions where the just energy transition is concerned?
Well, again, I think it's a key part of it for two reasons. First of all, in terms of reducing emissions within the economy, moving into the electric vehicle, the hybrid vehicle space, as we're seeing all around the world, is crucial. Of course, also for South Africa, its automotive sector is a vitally important part of the economy. I think it's roughly about 10% of GDP. So, it needs to make the transition to EV. The big automotive manufacturers here are committed to doing that in partnership with South Africa. The government has set out its EV roadmap. It is implementing the necessary policy changes. Again, I think we can bring our experience of what we have done, not least in terms of being able to share what we have done that hasn't been so effective, in order to help South Africa get this right. but it's all needs to be owned by South Africa. It is their plan that we are supporting in partnership.
And if I can just ask you this before we let you go, Commissioner, we saw the Zulu monarchy calling for the return of the artifacts that were taken in the Battle of Isandlwana. Maybe are you able to give us a sense of where are we with that particular process, looking at the fact that they've called for those artifacts to be returned from Britain into South Africa? Maybe you can give us an update on that.
I think I remember talking to SABC after I'd had a very warm meeting with His Majesty the King in July last year. It was a very positive discussion. It covered a whole series of partnerships about how we want to continue to build the relationship between the United Kingdom and the Zulu Kingdom. Some of what we talked about in the room, I'm going to leave in the room between His Majesty and myself, but we are very committed to having a positive, warm friendship with the Zulu people going forward.
British High Commissioner, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Coming through as the British High Commissioner, Antony Phillipson there, giving us a sense of the role of Britain and the UK at this mining Indaba, and also giving us an update in terms of certain developments where the relations between these two nations are concerned.